Welcome to the Crypto Podcast. You can find all our episodes on thecryptopodcast.org. We're also on BitChute and YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. I'm also a podcasting coach because I've got 4 other podcasts, with 4 of them being in the top 0.5%, with this one currently in the top 5%, but I'm sure I'll try to get it into the top 0.5% as well. And you'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. Today, my guest, please welcome Matt Lobel.
Hey, Roy, thank you very much for having me here. Hope this day is treating you well.
And very good. Yeah, I can't complain. I'm looking forward to this. I know we missed each other about things happening on both sides. So looking forward to this because I've done a lot of research on what you're doing, but you might let the listeners know. Who's Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am the founder of Playn, and Playn is a game ecosystem that's built over blockchain. And what we are trying to do is bring play-to-earn gaming to the masses and in a realistic way, which we don't think has happened yet, which goes back to a low adoption rate in the industry. So we're trying to fix that. We're trying to make an economic model that works, and it works for players, and we're trying to make fun games. How about that?
That sounds good. And to know something, I'm big into marketing. And I love the name Playn, because what are you doing? You're playing. So it's very good the way that you've secured that.
Well, I appreciate that. It was funny because a founder friend of mine said, "Man, how much did you pay for that domain?" And I said, $18. $18 and 5 hours of my life to find it.
But to be honest, I mean, I've the speakingpodcast.com and the other ones, but there's a load of the NFT ones that I've got. And I know because it's still early days, you can secure some very nice ones. And I mean, I didn't do it to be selling them on. I done it, for business purposes, for something that I'll be using myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Just takes a lot of searching. You just have to find something that's going to resonate with the brand you're building, and also that's not going to break your bank, because I sure did consider some that were going to be thousands of dollars, and I just happened along to playin.co, and I was like, that's beautiful.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I suppose before we touch on that, you might tell me your kind of journey into the blockchain technology.
Sure. Well, I've always been a techno geek, I guess. I was one of the first web developers, and yeah, I'm that old. Um, I found out at one point in my career that I created one of the first 500 commercial sites in existence for a company called Advantis. So I've always been in the technology space, always been interested in that. I went through e-learning, which is very media heavy, and I started several businesses within the e-learning industry. Custom e-learning development, narration for e-learning purposes, and then stock photography and that sort of thing. So I was in media very heavy, which kind of brought me into the gaming side of things. And I've always traded. And so whether that was currency trading or stock trading, and then more recently trading cryptos. And I viewed it as something to trade. I really didn't think a whole lot deeper about it than that, to be quite honest, Roy, until I was director of operations at a crypto education company. And we put out a series of videos, a docu-series about crypto, interviewed all of the top experts, and it just kind of clicked to me. Okay, well, there's some real utility here outside of just simply something I can trade. And that was a few years ago, and I just married it up with the game that was already in development, and I thought, this is bigger than a game. While a game is fun, and that's going to be a great way to do things, I said, this is really, it's got to be an ecosystem to provide real value. And that's actually one of the things that's missing in the marketplace right now. Like, you don't have a mature blockchain styled gaming system. The closest is Gala Games. They have a pretty nice setup, but they're doing it completely differently than what I am, thankfully. And I really just think people are missing the boat. But that's how I came into it, was first and foremost the knowledge that it was there as a trader, and then really kind of taking a deep dive with all of these insanely smart experts, just kind of in the process of running the operations in this company. It was just a phenomenal experience.
Excellent. So I suppose let's touch on it. What exactly is it doing? I mean, I have a list of things here, but I prefer you just talk away and let me know what it is.
Well, here's the secret. I'm going to give you the secret sauce right up front. The secret sauce is that everybody's trying to make it too complex. And what I mean by that is you have all of these gaming setups using NFTs, using blockchain, that really don't understand economics. And they're going to be great as long as money is flowing into them. But the moment the money stops flowing into them, they're going to have serious economic issues because they're depending on that revenue that has nothing to do with the game, that revenue which has to do with speculation, to drive their economic model. So what we're doing is completely different. I'm monetizing this just like we monetize any game. So I guess it comes down to why reinvent how games already are monetized and work. We're going to be selling skins, cosmetics, all of that sort of stuff inside of games to monetize the development, to monetize the ongoing expenses that you get inside the game, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So nothing about that monetization model changes. We add, although I will say we are not pay to win. We are making every effort to avoid having situations where somebody can dump money in and just win the game, because that's a problem in the gaming industry that's big time right now. But you look at games like Fortnite, you look at games like PUBG, and you see the amount of revenue they're getting in a non-pay to win format just off of cosmetics. And you realize there's a serious market there. So what we're doing is we're monetizing in traditional fashions. And then here is the blockchain component. You own what's in the game. You can take what's in the game out of the game. You can, within the game, sell any of the items you own. And that's important. It's in the game. These are not collectibles. You're not like, hey, look at my shiny NFT. You get a sword, Roy, just through the course of playing the game. And I'm speaking specifically to Darkland Wars right now, which is our first game that will be coming out. You get that sword and you're like, this is a great sword, but I don't really need it. Like, I've already got a sword that's pretty cool that I'll use. So you put it in our in-game auction house. It's your property. It goes into the auction house. Other players look at it, say, that's a pretty cool sword. They start bidding on it. When that sword sells, you get 90% of the proceeds. The game gets 10%. Part of that goes into our liquidity pool. Part of that goes into our game wallet. And it's a natural function of the game. We're not putting anything into a game that's like weird and unnatural and not a normal part of playing a game. So what we're able to do by adopting a standard game model and injecting the financial aspect of it using blockchain is we're able to create a safe environment. Like, all of these are written on blockchain. All of our transactions are immutable. We're going to be in our APIs, we're going to be writing them on multiple blockchains so that all of these transactions are traceable and we certainly hope unhackable. And we're not destroying any of the gameplay. So like, if you look at Axie Axie, for example, it's a very basic card game. I mean, that's a trading card game. It costs you about $1,000 to get a competitive team to go in there and play it. It's gambling. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is like, I'm going to pay $1,000. It's the worst of everything that people say about the gaming industry. It's pay to win. It's a huge investment up front if you want to be competitive. And at that point, it's gambling. And I want to break that model. I want fun games that are free to play. You're going to be able to download any of our games without charge. We're going to make money off of cosmetics. It's traditional money making channel at this point. We know it works. We're going to get a little bit of a revenue boost, maybe a lot of a revenue boost, depending on how popular it is, with the in-game auction houses. And the cool thing for our game from a revenue standpoint is we make money on the first auction, the second auction, the third auction, on into infinity. The cool thing for players is because they own those assets, they're going to be able to take them out, and we are building, yes, like everybody else, a metaverse. And you'll be able to take those game assets out and bring them into the metaverse and show your friends, hey, you may not play Darkland Wars, but check out this cool sword that I got in Darkland Wars. And you'll be able to show them your in-game assets. Trying to think if I've missed anything there.
And because I know your plan is to make at least is it, I don't know how many games, but your kind of long-term goal is to make so many games. Is the aim then that you would be able to take these assets and use them in the other game?
Yes. So it's complete transportability of the assets. Now, that comes with a little bit of an asterisk. Because, for example, you have a great sword, and we have, let's say, a first-person shooter game that is set in the Old West of the United States. Well, it doesn't really work to necessarily bring, let's say, a flaming sword into the Old West. So what we've got to do is, as we build these games, we're going to have an eye on these assets and, let's call it, transmute them into something more appropriate for gameplay. So maybe now that becomes a 6-shooter with fire coming out of it, every time it shoots. Something cool that doesn't break the experience of the game, doesn't break the story, maybe has equivalent power. I mean, that's one of the things as we build additional games that we're really going to have an eye towards, is some kind of a power rating scale on items. So if you have a rating 8 item, for example, and you bring it into the new game world, it can have an equivalent rating in the new game world. And so it doesn't break game mechanics either, because it does get pretty complex once you start talking about transportability of assets between games. But that's what we really want.
Okay. And just to get my head around this, right? So you've got X amount of players that get involved in this, and like you build up, you buy, say, the original sword from yourselves, right? You buy all the different assets. Yeah. What way is it going to work that people are going to be having the auction if they're still able to buy it from yourselves? Do you know what I mean?
Well, the way that they will get items is really only 3 ways. Okay. So inside a game, there's a merchant. Now, the merchant is basically the game itself selling items. They're not up for auction. There's a flat rate, and there's a cap on what we're going to be selling in there. In other words, you're not going to be able to buy unlimited resources inside a merchant. You might just be able to get enough to kind of get you over the hump if you're trying to do something in the game and you need a little.
So a certain sword, you'll have X amount, so that once it goes out to market, you won't be able to sell it no more, unless it's the market will be selling it as such than the users.
No, not quite. So you've got the marketplace, and the marketplace, let's look at the marketplace as auction house light. There is no auction side of it, and the items that are in there are random and they're low level. Okay, so you as a starting player might go to the merchant because you can get something cheaper than you could if you bought it at the auction house, and that's your easy and quick source. In the auction house, all of these items are available for purchase. There's going to be very few in-game items that you can't sell in the auction house. You as a player, you're going to be making economic decisions. You're going to be able to get these items initially in the game. So let's just say that sword, it drops in the game when you farm a monster. You then decide to sell it. Now it's in circulation. So before that, you own it. You're the only one who owns it. Once you place it in the auction house, it gets tagged as being in the auction house in our APIs, and then other players can bid on it. Another player can buy it. Now they own it, and so on and so forth. So there is no cap to how many times an object could be sold inside the game, but all of the objects originate inside the game in the Playn environment. So nothing originates in the auction house. Things do originate in the merchant, but they're low level. And you're really, once you get beyond the starting levels, you're not going to be that interested in anything that the merchant sells.
Okay. And with like when you're creating this on the blockchain technology, is it all in-house, or is there gas fees that's going to be done, and what kind of platform? Like, is it Ethereum, Polygon, or how is it actually done?
Yeah, so there are, we do have to deal with fees as currencies get converted. And those fees are going to be passed on to the cost of the conversion. So when you're bringing in, and we haven't determined exactly which currencies we're going to limit it to, but there's going to be limited currencies that we will transact with. Obviously, fiat is big. We definitely want people to be able to get in as easily as using their Visa or MasterCard. And that's a big thing with us, Roy, is that we're really trying to simplify things. Like you and I are pretty comfortable, I'm sure, using MetaMask wallets and connecting things up and all of that. But most people aren't, and most people don't want to bother with it, and I don't blame them, to be honest. So we're trying to cover as much of that as possible without users having to bend over backwards. Obviously, we still have to be compliant with KYC and make sure that we are covering the legal ground, but we're not going to make people jump through big hoops. So when it comes to the fees and all of that sort of thing, it's going to be very transparent. Hey, you're paying, let's say, 5% to transfer the funds in, and here's how it breaks out. We don't have any problem breaking out the fees and saying, let's say they're coming in with fiat, it's, hey, here's your credit card fee. Everybody's used to seeing that on their transactions. And it's always broken out and it's always transparent. And we just think the gas fees and anything of that nature should be as well. So we'll break the fees out so that everybody understands what's being charged when it's being charged. Because that's the one thing with crypto. Because it is a tradable asset, people get a little freaked out because they may be doing a transaction and they see all of a sudden their costs are fluctuating in real time. That's kind of nature of the beast. So we as a company have to be aware of that, and we have to be super transparent and make sure people understand what's going on, and make sure, especially as they transfer money out, that they understand what's going on, because that's kind of a weird area for a lot of people. Like, you've got GMG now, great. Value of GMG is, let's just say, $10 a token. You want to convert it to Ethereum. I have no idea what Ethereum's running right now, but let's just say $2,000 a coin. So now all of a sudden you're trying to figure out how much is this in real money, because to most people this isn't real money until it goes to fiat, right? Like, it's all play money. So those are the things.
And reality is fiat money is play money as well. Like,
Oh my gosh, yeah, don't send me down that rabbit trail, because I'm an American, and right now we're printing money like it is monopoly money. Oh, okay. So yes, and actually, just as a fun aside, the U.S. currency used to be backed by gold, as we're all aware.
yeah, Nixon kind of ruined that on you, didn't he, in '73, I believe?
Yes, he sure did. Thank you very much. And GMG is actually named Game Gold as a throwback to that, because all of our in-game transactions are backed by gold. So that was a tip of the hat there to the way things should be.
No, very good, very good. And it's something that I'm kind of discussing with a few people, but I would love, especially the way blockchain technology is coming on, to kick Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal out of the waters, because they are fleecing people. I mean, it's your kind of minimum 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. But I have had personal transactions getting paid with PayPal and they took 11%. And I know other ones that I've seen and it's like 7%. And you're like, hey, what's going on here? Like, whereas I send Revolut or Wise, and yeah, you're nowhere near that. Like,
Yeah, you're spot on. And it's really, it's funny because it's new technology, and so they just feel it's like the Wild West and they can do what they want. But that's the beautiful thing with blockchain is as this matures, there's more and more products coming out now that are going to be really eating their lunch. I mean, you look at well organized projects like USDC, with Circle, and how they've kind of created fiat on ramps and all of this sort of stuff around their currency, their digital currency, and they're not going to be the end. They're not even they're well organized, but to me, they're also still not great. But there will be great services competing with them, and then competition. That's a beautiful thing that will get costs back down and in line. And there's going to be some small upstarts that are going to be doing this for minimal amounts and really helping us to get some value out of it. But you're right, it's like fees can be insane right now.
And I mean, I like the way that you can actually, you're able to use the credit card for doing it because, as you said, a lot of people don't want to use the wallets. Like with the MetaMask wallet, when you actually go in, I mean, I'm using that myself, like along with other ones, but if you look at the reviews on it, there's a lot of people going, I lost all my money. Somebody took my money. What do I do? And all this. And it's kind of scary because if you have, say, Revolut or whatever other banking system, that doesn't happen. But with, it was a 15% kind of negativity, which is it's high when you think of it.
Yeah, it's super high. And there are a lot of risks that come with being in a young industry. And I cited Axie before as gambling, but they got hit with a $625 million hack. That's a lot of money to lose. And it highlights how much, and I hate regulators, but we are completely compliant in everything that we're doing in terms of how we're handling things. But there does have to be oversight and regulation because at some future time, a attorney is going to kick my tail with this recording, but we are all functioning as banks now. And I really, that has to sink in at some point. Axie got robbed to the tune of 625 million. What was that 625 million? Was that Axie's personal? Was that their personal corporate account? Was that a combination of wallets that they were managing? Were they custodial? These are all like kind of important questions. And so one of the things we're doing right now is we're designing the APIs. And I told our coders, I told the people, the architects, I should say, I said, view us as a bank. Like we're custodial in nature. We're holding tons of money in our liquidity pools. We're transferring assets all the time between player accounts. There is a huge custodial nature that has not been addressed by very many companies. And it really needs to. There needs to be security audits regularly, and best practices. Like Axie's was horrible. They had 9 nodes, and only 4 of them had to agree to the transfer. But here's what happened. Like I'm going out on a limb here, Roy. I'm going completely out. I have no actual knowledge here, so as a disclaimer. But I'm going on what I think happened. What I think happened is these guys got together, put together the games, said, hey, wouldn't this be cool on blockchain? Hey, let's do our own security. I do know they said that because that was printed. And then I think they said, 9 nodes with 4 agreeing, that's probably just too low a threshold. But hey, we've got a lot of game development to do. We've got a lot of this to do. We've got a lot. And they kept kicking the can down the road. And it came back to bite them. I can't imagine that they thought that was adequate security. But I do think that they just said, well, we have this that's more important right now. We have this that's more important right now. And it kept becoming one thing and another thing. And then they're excited about their success. And the next thing you know, they're not even thinking about their 9 nodes that only 4 have to agree.
And like you mentioned about the kind of gambling that's going on in the industry, and to be honest with you, that's been pushed, even the advertisements all through the years, not just in the gaming industry, but and there's serious side effects to that in the family, because some people, they don't know when to stop. And gambling is a serious addiction problem. And to be honest with you, I would kick it out. Like, I would not allow it, because I have seen families destroyed because of it. So I love the fact that you're not going down that route. Like,
Yeah. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's I have, and this is self-confession time here, I guess. I have in my nature the ability to kind of go down that rabbit hole myself. Like I always think I can figure out how to make it work. And that's like the number one thing they say is like the biggest red flag for gambling is like, if you think you can always figure out how to make it work, then you're always figuring that you could go to the roulette table and figure out the formula that's going to break the bank. Everybody's got that who's in gambling has that kind of mindset. So I look at it and I say, yeah, I mean, I'm sure I could go down that if I let myself. I just hate losing money too much. But the thing is, that's what gaming is right now, by and large on blockchain. It's a lot of that, and then it's a lot of people being fleeced for NFTs. And they're being fleeced. When I say that, it's because they're being sold a bill of goods that, hey, these billion NFTs we're selling, they're all going up in value. and you can actually do something with them, but you can't. So where we're coming from is, look, the value of the blockchain is that it's immutable. It doesn't change. Your record is permanent. So we can codify transactions. The value of the blockchain is being able to bring easily financial transactions into existence. So we're taking advantage of that and keeping things traditional as far as the games themselves, and not providing opportunities inside the games to make them gambling. If you're going to get ahead in our games financially, and you sure could, it's going to be because you've played a game that you're enjoying and you're starting to get things that other players want. And then we didn't touch on this, but when I say almost everything is for sale in the games, at some point, Roy, you're going to go and play Darkland Wars if you do, and you're going to say, okay, this was fun, but man, I'm done. Like, I don't want to play Darkland Wars anymore. Games have a life cycle. Yeah. And you're going to say, but I've got these really cool things. So you're going to sell off your cool items, or you're going to sell your entire account. And right now in games, there are no safe ways to do that. You have third-party sites that are set up to try and kind of do it in an escrow fashion, but they're not really solid and good. And I've never understood, quite honestly, why games don't do it themselves. So we're doing it. You have at this level an account, and then right under it, for every game, you have personas. And it's your persona that you're going to sell. So everything with your account remains stable and consistent, and your persona is viewed as another game asset, but it's the master game asset.
Excellent. And I've looked at the videos on Darkland Wars because I know it's in development, but it looks cool. Like, it looks very good. And like, it's like a subscription model that you're doing, because is it like $9.95 or something like that per month, which is very reasonable as well. Like,
yes and no. So the subscription is completely optional. You can play the game without a subscription. And what was important to me, because we have I've played this was a genre that I enjoyed personally, massively multiplayer real-time strategy. And there's a lot of players that play that come from third world countries, and they don't have $9.95. I mean, it's a reasonable fee, but they don't have it. So the way the game is actually designed is players can watch ads. They can voluntarily watch ads. They're not going to pop up all over the place, but they can voluntarily watch ads to gain boosts that will equate to the same subscription that's $9.95. So
I love that because I mean, yeah, you're catering for everybody. Like you're just not saying, yeah, we're just going for the guys. Not brilliant. I love that model. And I mean, obviously, you have to be paid for what you're doing because you've got a lot of development costs and office costs, the whole lot. I know how much it costs to do these things. So that's a fantastic model. So perhaps just finally, like I know you're doing Darkling Wars, but you might talk on what other, if you're able to, what other ones you plan to get people excited, to get people interested in what other games you're.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and obviously we're not going to be building 60 games ourselves. I could spend the next 30 years doing that. So we're going to be acquiring games after we do our token offering. A large chunk of that offering is going into the acquisition of indie games and indie game developers, and then partnerships with indie game companies. Unfortunately, the one common thread in indie games is that they're undercapitalized. And so we can help. We can come along as a partner. So we're going to have a partner program. We can come along as an investor, or we can outright acquire games or companies as makes sense for our model. Now, for us, what we're planning is we're planning a total of 4 games. Our games are Darkland Wars, which is a massively multiplayer real-time strategy game. Lords of Steel, which is a futuristic robot combat game. And I'm super excited about that because there's a lot of backstory and fun stuff involved in that. And then we're planning 2 massively multiplayer role-playing games. And one of them is I got to admit I have favorites. It's like people say you don't have favorite children. Yeah, you do. Um, you love them all equally, but you always have a little, oh, this one reminds me of me. So I have one game that's in development, or I should say in design, and that's called Medieval Tales, and Tales is spelled Tails. And what that is a bunch of animals that are basically in your role-playing games. So you might have a badger who's a warrior. You might have a rat that's a wizard, and it's going to be, I'd say, from a rating standpoint, and just for the record for everybody, none of these games are going to be something that are only for adults. But none of them are probably going to be for young kids either. They're mostly going to be teen rated. That's what we're shooting for. We want to have some creative freedom to have maybe a little blood, guts, and gore, but nothing over the top. This is because I don't really care for those games, quite frankly. If your head starts exploding, I don't want to see it. They Medieval Tales, it's going to be a little dark, a little fun, a lot of humor in it, because hey, you've got animals running around on their hind legs, casting spells and using weapons. So how can you not have fun with it? One of my favorite characters is the raccoon. And I can't remember the name of the movies that they do, but it's like the intergalactic ones that they run around. It's part of the Marvel universe. In any case, I love that raccoon. That is just so cool to me. So we're having Medieval Tales, and then we're going with dark fantasy set in a Viking era called Bloodlines. And so, and again, this is all me just having fun, Roy. Let's be honest with this. Like, I love the History Channel Viking show, and I'm like, man, that would be such a cool game to play. So, this is me having fun. I love real-time strategy. What's our first game? Oh, it's a real-time strategy game. I mean,
they all sound excellent, actually. They're all sounding ones like, ooh, I'd look forward to seeing that. Like, and the thing with your strategy for kind of getting to 60, because I know just from a lot of businesses, sometimes, especially in this industry, you have, let's call them techno geeks, can create brilliant games, but they don't have the marketing skills. So they could have something, and by actually matching up, or you just buy them out, it allows you to expand, which in turn kind of supports the whole, ecosystem that you're creating.
Yeah, Absolutely. And that's what's exciting to me as well is, I've struggled in game development just like every other indie company. I don't have the deep pockets of a Nintendo or, any of our big so for me to be able to help somebody out in a development and get them to the point where they're doing well is that's exciting. I volunteer coach American football. I'm an offensive line coach, so may not be politically correct, but I tell them I coach the fat boys, and I'm proud of it. Um, and the reason I do that is because I enjoy seeing people succeed. Like, to me, that's what thrills me. So being able to go to an indie company and saying, "Hey, look, you guys have done a great job. How can we partner with you to get you over here to get you to succeed? Because it looks like you're struggling right now." That would be awesome to me.
No, absolutely. No, to be honest, I love your philosophy on everything, the way you're thinking, the whole process, because not everyone thinks like that. I'm just curious, are you looking for investors, or is it closed down?
And that's the funny thing. And I'm now talking to any investor that's looking on this. If you're from a major investment company, you have our pitch deck somewhere in your email file and you're ignoring it. And here's the truth. I am not sending out any more pitch decks, Roy. I'm so over that, and it's sucking my time. So yeah, if somebody came to me, I would definitely consider that. But at this point, I have committed to bootstrapping it. I'm not independently wealthy. I really am not. But I've got over $130,000 into this already. And I am working my tail off day and night to generate revenue, to put more revenue into this. And I don't even want to tell you what my burn rate is each month. But I'm bootstrapping. Would I accept investment? Sure, under the right terms, but I can get to the finish line without it. It's just not as comfortable.
Yeah, well, like based on your philosophy and how you look at life and all the things you're doing, the way I see it is majority of investors don't think like that. So I would keep going the way you're going, and it'll come when it does, and eventually it'll just spiral. That you're just walk till you take, and then you can grow a lot faster, because you get in the wrong boys. They'll be looking at, oh, don't be giving it away free, don't be doing this, don't be doing that, and before you know it, you'll actually hate working in your own company.
There's a lot to be said about that. You're spot on, and I think that the funny thing is that there's tons of money to be made in this. It's $180 billion gaming market. And if I mean, I'm no math whiz, but if you just tap 1% of it, you're doing pretty good. I
Yeah.
mean, you are not suffering, my friend. Um, but let's look at this, and this is, I think, kind of the biggest thing. Let's take that sword scenario, because what this has the potential to do is not just, yeah, it could make me personally wealthy. Um, but I'm doing okay, Roy. I'm not suffering. I'm having a good life. I live in a beautiful part of the country. I've got a nice house. I've got a nice car. I'm not suffering. But there's people in third world countries that $400 to them is a good monthly salary. Like, that's the top 10% in their country.
Yeah.
If they're on and they're the ones who are playing the game for free, and that sword drops for them, and they decide to put it up for the auction, and the sword sells to somebody in Europe or the US, or in one of the developed Asian countries, and it sells for the equivalent of $1,000, and we get our $100 auction house fee, they now have $900 that they can withdraw out and essentially change a big part of their existence, because that's 2 months of salary. and they've done it playing a game, and they don't even, I mean, I know there's going to be people who grind. There's always people who grind. But they didn't even grind. Like, that's just a natural part of the game. And politicians like to talk about wealth redistribution. And the problem is that's usually at the point of a gun. Uh, but and I'm not a big fan of forcing people to give up money. Like, I'm somewhere between a libertarian uh, and a fiscal hawk. But this is voluntary. Like, you're happy because you get the sword you wanted. And there's people who drop way more than $1,000 for stuff in games, and they don't think about it because it's not that much money to them. You're happy because you got what you want. That player is overjoyed because they got what they wanted, which was, money to take care of their family. And everybody did it playing a game. How ridiculous is that?
No, exactly. And what about, because I know I've had guests on where they have systems in place where basically people are paying people to play the games in the third world countries. So, for example, they'd give them 100 a month, knowing that they're making a lot more, is which I find a bit sneaky, to be honest with you. Like, but then again, they probably wouldn't have the 100 to get in with a lot of these games. But is there any way to kind of circumnavigate that they can't do that?
No, there's really
Nah,
not.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to say that there is a way for us to do it, but we're going to have our hands full just not allowing bots. I mean, that's our big battle, is to figure out who the bots are. And I want to eliminate that, but you can't really eliminate these players from playing for another organization, because that's all happening off game.
Yeah.
To the game, it's just another player. What I do hope is, I do hope these players look at it and realize, hey, I don't really need to be a part of this organization, because why am I getting paid $100 when I'm generating? I just found an item that was worth $500.
Exactly. And that's what I hope will happen with a lot of these people, especially if you have its system that they can get in for nothing. They can actually, all right, I have to work 3 men for 40 hours. Yeah, I'll do maybe 20 in my own time, and eventually go, yeah, I don't want to be making somebody else rich. I can do it myself.
Exactly. And and I think that a lot of that will kind of equal out. It's kind of, people aren't stupid, you know, and a lot of times people think, well, people who don't have a lot of money, they're not. No, they're pretty darn smart. They can figure these things out. They just happen to be raised in an environment that doesn't encourage it. I know people from poor countries, and they're just like, our government crushes us. Like, it's not that we don't want to earn money. It's that everything in our system crushes our ability to advance. And that's the exciting thing about blockchain, is that it's taking a financial system away from the governments. I know, again, some of those people, they're completely on board with crypto. Why? Because the government doesn't touch that. They can't touch what they have. Government has no access to, especially if you're using cold storage. I mean, nobody has access. You're your own bank. And that's what's so cool about this, is like, let's take the financial institutions back. I'm not a big fan of central currencies, and the way that and I'm really not a big fan of central digital currencies. So, just for the record, anybody who's listening, don't support that. Like, the last thing you want is the government knowing every transaction you have.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm looking at a lot of things on sovereignty, UCC, common law, and everything. And especially in America, everything they've done is fraudulent. All the tax, the income tax, and everything, the whole lot is fraudulent. So when you kind of learn to kind of take control yourself, and I believe crypto and having your own wallets and doing it is a way of actually, is part of that. Instead of just kind of thinking it is what it is, the system, always think differently, and you can actually end up with more money in your pocket instead of theirs, where they're partying and having their little private flights to different islands. Like,
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Okay. Listen, Matt, thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. You might let people know how can they get in contact with you.
Well, it's not actually all that hard. You can go to our website at Playn, PLAYN.co, and you can check out everything there. And at some point, I'll probably regret giving my email address out to everybody, but truthfully, I really don't mind getting emails. It's matt@playn.co. So if folks want to reach out to me directly, they can do so pretty easily. And I respond to just about everything I get. So
okay, yeah, and I make sure I'll put all the links. I won't put your email because once you put your email in these things, you get bombarded by spammers. So, but those that are really listening, it's an easy one to actually note. So, thank you
hey,
very much.
if they've gotten to the end of the interview and I haven't put them to sleep, then God bless them. They can have my email address.
Listen, thanks very much, Matt. Totally enjoyed it.
Yeah, I absolutely enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on, Roy.
No problem. So that's all for the Crypto Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on the cryptopodcast.org. As mentioned, we're on BitChute and YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. As mentioned, I'm a podcasting coach. So if you're interested in starting a podcast or look at my other podcast, go to bio.link/podcaster. Until next week, take care.